Yeah, thank you. I'm just going to share my testimony and then my wife's going to give the word. But yeah, why don't we just pray? Yeah, God, I thank you for today. I thank you for everything you're doing in each person's life here, God. I pray that you would just come, God, that you would just speak through me, God, that everything you want me to share, I would share, and that people would just be impacted, God, in Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, so my name's Dan. I grew up in a Christian home. I had a pretty good life compared to, quite a few people. Both my parents were believers, and I went to church every Sunday. And but quickly, I was a pretty good kid. But in about grade 3, we switched schools. And when I was at that school, I got bullied, and it was pretty bad. Like, I went to counseling and stuff for it. And then I think, as a kid, I just wondered what's wrong with me. Like, why did people pick on me? I was, the school I went to before never got made fun of, so I was just confused and thought what was wrong with me. But in that time, through inner healing, I realized that when that happened, I decided I'm going to do whatever it takes to fit in. So in high school, I quickly realized to fit in, I could do drugs and I'd fit in with people there. So I started smoking weed. And then it escalated into party drugs, harder drugs on the weekends and stuff like that. And I moved out of my house when I was like 16. And, I got even heavier into drugs very quickly. And I got arrested a few times. And my parents always said they'd never bail me out. So when I was arrested when I was a teen, it didn't really matter. They let me out right away. But then when I was an adult, I finally got arrested for dealing because I was doing that to supply my habit. And when I got arrested for dealing, I went to jail, and my parents were like, we're not going to bail you out. And it was just really boring there for me. It wasn't as bad as the movies make it. But I told my mom that it was. I told my mom that people were going to do really bad stuff to me because I knew they wouldn't get me out otherwise. And so they decided to get me out, but they said I had to get clean. So I was good for about a year. I was clean. But during that year, a close friend of mine commits suicide. And another friend of mine who we both promised we would never do like the really hard drugs, he ended up in Teen Challenge. And so that year was pretty rough for me. And after the year, my parents kind of started loosening the reins and gave me more freedom. And I went to college, and I quickly started getting back into party drugs. And then one night, I was high on cocaine, and I needed to go to, I had to work the next day. So I'm like, I need something to sleep. And a buddy's like, oh, I know what can help you sleep. And he introduced me to Oxycontin. And that was just game over for me. Once I felt that feeling, I didn't want anything else in life. I'm like, this is what I've wanted my whole life. And I got addicted really quickly. I started dealing it. And it was just downhill. I started smoking it, and then I got to injecting it. And after that, it got really bad. So it was about probably a year of just really, really bad addiction that I was addicted to it. And then one of my friends actually wanted to go to detox, and I thought I had it under control. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll go with you to help you. I don't have a problem, but you do, so I'll go help you. And then I went to the detox, and at this point, my parents still didn't really know how bad it was. And then they had my cell phone, and they went through it, and they basically were like, you're not leaving detox to come home unless you go into Teen Challenge. And so I didn't care. I ended up leaving the detox and ended up getting high. And I was high the whole night. And then I remember waking up. And up until that point, I had couch surfed and lived with friends, but I was never homeless. And that night, we spent the night on the street. And I remember thinking, oh, I could keep living my life this way. Maybe another year, maybe another 5 years. But eventually, I'm going to end up here on the streets. And that's not what I want. So I decided to go to Teen Challenge. And I went to Teen Challenge, and God just completely changed my life. I remember going to a worship service. The first day I was back, I was at Teen Challenge. I was at this worship service. I was like withdrawing and sweating and just like really dirty and grimy. I had just been on the streets for like the week before. And I remember going into this worship service and just thinking, okay, I'm just gonna worship. And I remember raising my hands for worship, and then I just felt the love of God hit me, like it made me feel better than any drug ever had. And I just started weeping, and I just was like, wow, God, like here I am at my lowest point, my worst point. I knew what you did for me. I saw the passion of the Christ, and I still just said, screw you, God, and just did my own thing. And here you are loving me. And then I decided at that point, I'm like, I want to live the rest of my life for God. And I wish that was the end of the story and it just went all smooth sailing, but it didn't, because I think the problem I had is I thought I invited God in to bless my life, but I didn't give my life fully over to God, and that I think was one of my big problems. So I got really into God, into the Bible, through Teen Challenge. Everything was going good. I met my beautiful wife, Miruna. I was at the last month of Teen Challenge. She was in the School of Ministry, Catch the Fire School of Ministry. And we met at the Followers Mission. If anyone knows where that is, it's like downtown Toronto. And, I shared my testimony. She came up to me afterwards and was like, oh, that's a great testimony. And we talked about what we wanted to do with her life. And she wanted to do missions. I wanted to do missions. And I'm like, oh, she's got to be my wife. Like, it's obvious, We got it. And it was funny because I wasn't allowed talking to girls at the time. But the pastor who brought us there was like, oh, I felt like God was blessing you, so I just let it slide. And then a year later, we actually got married, right? And he was the one who did our wedding, so it was pretty cool. But we were actually engaged before, and we were planning to get married in like March. But at one point, she had leaders from where we're at now in California. They came and they talked to her, and they have a rehab there. And they basically told her, they're like, hey, this guy's just fresh, clean. Like, you never know what's going to happen. You should be careful. And then, so she called off the wedding, actually. So up until that point, I had been doing really good. I was clean. I had also had like a porn addiction before, and I stopped that, and everything was good. But when she called off the wedding, all the rejection and the childhood stuff came back. And that night, I watched porn, and then quickly, after I did that, I thought, oh, if she finds out about the porn, she's going to leave me. And then it led me to using drugs, and I kept it hidden the whole time until we got married. Then we ended up moving to China, and then I thought, okay, good. It's another chance for me to get clean. I have no drugs around me. It'll be good. And then while we were in China, I was going to the doctor all the time, and they kept giving me like herbal supplements and stuff. And then one day, they gave me a narcotic, and my brain just triggered, and I was like, oh, maybe I can get something more. And then I started getting the exact same drugs that I was addicted to. And again, I kept it hidden. And during that time also, I was going for massages, to the doctor for massages and physio. And then one time I didn't go to the doctors, and they offered more than a massage. And I gave in, and I committed infidelity. And then at that point, I knew what I had done to my wife, and I couldn't stop the drugs because I just needed to forget what I did. I didn't want to feel what a dirtbag that I was, and it was just really bad. So we went back to Canada to have our firstborn son. We had him, and then 2 months later, she actually found me overdosed on my parents' bathroom floor. And then that was just a eye-opener for her. And then we decided what we would do. We didn't think I needed to go to Teen Challenge again, so we went to the School of Ministry in Toronto, and everything was really good. Like, I went there, I got a lot of healing. And we ended up going on staff at Catch the Fire Toronto. We were there for about 4 years. But I started making small compromises here and there. Like, I was in business, and I thought, oh, I don't need to report my taxes. And then, just little things here and there that just kept adding up. And then I started thinking, you know what, I'm a fake. And then we actually... Catch the Fire Ottawa, they had just let go of their pastors, and we had expressed to like Steve and Sandra Long that we wanted to be pastors and church plant later on. And so they told us, oh, they're wanting someone to go speak there. And we knew, oh, that means they might want us to come be pastors there. And you think, like, that's the thing that I wanted my whole life, but I knew that I was a fake, and I was doing stuff that people didn't know about, and that caused me actually to use. I ended up relapsing again. I went to the hospital, and I just kept it hidden again. I even got the doctor to lie to my wife, and then that was kind of a wake-up call for me again. And then we ended up going to Ottawa and being the pastors there, and this whole time, even though I was doing good, I had this hidden secret, and that hidden secret was just constantly gnawing on me, and no one knew about it, so I just had that shame and that guilt. And we were doing really good in Ottawa. It was everything we thought we dreamed of. But then we ended up having a speaker come from Teen Challenge, and he shared about the dark web, that you could get drugs on the dark web. And then my brain again was like, oh, Miruna's going to a conference in Raleigh. I could get high while she's gone. I'll just do it one time. But of course, it wasn't one time. And, I started using it again. And then because of that, the guilt again, I, committed infidelity again. And then we were actually, it was about a year into pastoring that church where it was a Sunday morning. And she just told me, I always had a rule I would try not to use on Sundays because I still saw it as a holy day. But then the day before, we found out she was pregnant with our third child. And then I just had so much guilt and shame that I thought, I can't be a dad. If they knew the truth, I'm just going to ruin these kids' lives. And I just, ended up getting high. And then my wife knew I was acting different. And then she tested me. And then the look on her face was just sheer brokenness, and she was just so just completely destroyed. And then I realized, oh, dang, I've really done it now. And then I knew she basically told me, I want a divorce. I'm done with you. I still want you to be a part of the kids' lives, but we're done. We're through. And then I remember the whole time when I was using, I thought, if she ever finds out, I'm just going to go full-blown addict, because clearly I can't get clean. Clearly, it's not going to work for me. And that's what I thought. But then when she found out, I was like, but I can't. I literally thought, I can't. I've gotten these prophetic words. I've had all these encounters with God. I can't turn back. I can't go the other way. I know that God's real, so I can't turn from him. And so we ended up getting suggested to go to California, the Father's House. They have a program. And I remember we actually went out with our friends who he prophesied over me. We were sitting there, and Kathy Harris from the School of Ministry said, yeah, you should go there. And I was kind of debating it because I'm like, I lost her already. I don't think I need it. And then my friend texted me, and it was a verse, and it was David inquiring of God. And he said, shall I pursue them? And then God said, pursue, overtake, and you will recover all. And then I remember knowing, I just felt it deep in my spirit that God was going to give me back everything if I went and did this. And so I went there, and it was the hardest thing. I ended up being there 3 months, but then I left because of COVID. But then I always knew we have to go back there. And so, we were still separated the whole time. We decided to go back, and it was hard. It was a really hard thing for me to do. Like I said, I invited God to bless my life, but what I had to do and when I went there is I had to give everything to him. I had to die to myself. I had to die to everything I wanted, and I had to give it all to him. And when I did, it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy road. It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But God slowly started restoring everything. About 2 years ago, so we went there 5 years ago. I went there 5 years ago. We went back 4 years ago. And then 2 years ago, 2.5 years into it, we renewed our vows. And it was just a glorious day because we had been separated this whole time, and God completely restored our marriage, and it's better than it ever was before. God really showed me how to be mentored, and I have a spiritual father who really looks out for me, and he just restored everything. My life is way better than it was before. I remember before, people would say, oh, my life's the best it's ever been. And I remember thinking my life will never be as good as it was. I had everything I wanted, and I lost it all. But now my life is really, it's the best it's ever been. We finished the school, and we're on staff there now. And now I get to help other people in the rehab get out of this hopeless situation, other people who've had relapses, and tell them, no, there is hope. You're not too far gone, because I've been exactly where you are, and I'm able to help them out. And so, like, we just want to, like, give an invitation to anyone here. Like, if you know someone's struggling or you're struggling, like, come talk to us after the service. We're happy to help you. We're happy to point you in the right direction. And also, like the Life Recovery Ministries, where that I went to and helped me and saved me in our marriage, they're not government funded at all. So they just rely completely on the church, because if they were government funded, they wouldn't have the Jesus aspect. And we all know that's what keeps people free, and is going to make people free. And so we actually started like a sponsorship program. So you can sponsor a student if you're interested in that. You could see me at the back as well, and you can sponsor a student to help them, recover as well, because it's quite we don't charge anyone to go in the program, because we don't want any financial constraints from people getting clean and meeting God. But yeah, come see us after the service. But yeah, now on to my wife.
So first of all, we're so honored to be here. So thank you, Rachel and Kyan, for having us. I love that Dan shared the details of his testimony. And I know the details, sometimes it's like, wow, like, it's intense, isn't it? But I think in order for me to share what I feel God wanted me to share to you, I think it was important that you heard like the intensity and the details of what happened, and the devastation of like heartbreak, and the devastation and suffering that he was going through because of his addiction, but also what it caused me, right? The brokenness. So today, I'm looking at the time, so, okay, I'm going to honor the time, okay? I will honor the time, but I do have a message for you guys, and I want to talk about forgiveness and suffering. So when Rachel asked me to speak, I felt like God wanted to... God was showing me these things about suffering, and I was writing it down, and then in it, obviously our story's full of forgiveness. So it's like, how do I join these two? But I feel like God's, going to shed light into both, into forgiveness, into suffering, into like the painful things that we go through in life, and what God can do in it. Are you guys ready? Yes. Okay. Okay, so there are so many of you that I know here, so it's so nice to see people, that I know. Let's just relax and I feel like I'm home. I feel like I'm with family right now. So I love what Kyan talked about in the beginning, where he mentioned, Jesus rode on a donkey into Jerusalem, and that's why we celebrate today, Palm Sunday. So the people of that time, they had an idea in their minds of who Jesus was, or who their Savior was going to be. And they had this idea of how he was going to come, and how he was going to defeat their enemies, how he was going to overthrow the Romans. And Jesus came, so him coming on the donkey, he was fulfilling prophecy, but he came to show them that by fulfilling the prophecy, he's saying, I am actually the long-awaited king you've been waiting for. It's me. I am the one who has come to defeat your enemies. Now, they thought their enemies were the Romans. Jesus was coming to defeat our real enemy, which was sin, death, and Satan. Right? And, at the time, the people were preparing for this moment, like for Jesus to come. They were preparing, they had studied him, they had read scriptures, they heard about what was going to happen, and yet he came in front of their faces and they missed it. They completely missed it. And I was thinking, I'm like, how many times do we miss Jesus? When he comes right in front of us and he tries to help us understand who he is and what he's doing and how he's leading the way, and we totally miss it. And so I feel like what he wants to do today is show us, and even with our story and what we're going to share, like the heart is that you would really see who Jesus is and what he can do. Because really, if we didn't have Jesus in our life and in our marriage, like we wouldn't be who we are today. We wouldn't be married. We wouldn't be together. We wouldn't have these 3 kids. We wouldn't be doing what we're doing today, right? Forgiveness is something that is so powerful. It's something that is like non-negotiable. You know, if we say that we want to follow Jesus, it's like it's part of who we are. It's what we do. And so what I want to do is I'm going to just list off things that forgiveness is not, so we just get that out of the way, okay? So forgiveness does not mean forgiveness. So people's misconceptions of forgiveness are these things that I'm going to list. Forgiveness means excusing or justifying behavior. That's not forgiveness. Forgiveness requires reconciliation. It doesn't require reconciliation. I did not think there was going to be any reconciliation here. Forgiveness is a one-time event. It's not a one-time event. Forgiveness means forgetting. Forgiveness is weakness. Forgiveness is for the offender. And I'm going to dive into that a little bit deeper. But forgiveness is actually not for the person who's hurt you. It's for you. You have to feel like forgiving to forgive. You know, if I waited till I felt like I needed to forgive, I don't know if that day would have ever come, you know. Forgiveness is automatic. It's not. Forgiveness means letting go of boundaries. And forgiveness is a sign of approval. It's not. Okay? But forgiveness is a picture of the cross. It's a picture of what Jesus did for us. And if no matter who you are, no matter if you feel like you are a good person or you do good things, like it is for you and me, it's for everyone. Our standard of goodness doesn't compare to Jesus' standard of goodness. And we can never measure up if it weren't for what Jesus did on the cross for us. Okay? So, you know, Jesus says in Matthew 6:14-15, it says, "For if you forgive other people for their offenses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive other people, then your Father will not forgive your offenses." So this is like, you know, so there's that condition. If you forgive people of their offenses, then only will you be forgiven of yours. And if you do not forgive, then you won't be forgiven. So forgiveness is like applying what Jesus did on the cross into our lives. You know, and so it's like if we don't know how to walk in that, that's kind of a scary place to be in, isn't it? And when I talk about forgiveness, you heard our story, and I'm going to get into my side of the story in just a little bit, but I want, like, you may be sitting there thinking, oh, I know what you must feel because you've been in a place where you feel like you were the victim of betrayal and hurt and pain. Or you might not have like something massive that happened to you, like what I felt was massive. You might have your own massiveness that happened in your life. But I'm also talking about just offenses and even pain and bitterness and all those things that can come into our heart because we live in a broken world. You know, it's like that thing of suffering, like when you have something in your heart that is not meant to be there, like pain and unforgiveness and offenses, it's suffering, isn't it? And that suffering is really the gap that's between our expectations and reality. It's like the piece in between. So when we expect for our lives or, you know, our way, something to go in a certain direction, this is our expectation, and what ends up happening was completely not what we expected, like what you heard in our story. It's like this middle area is like that's the hard suffering time, isn't it? And it's so important that we recognize that, because in that moment is when people make decisions. And in those moments is when you will decide either to cling towards God or to move away. And it's in those areas of like, I thought, you have all these thoughts, right? I did, like, God, why me? Like, I did ask that question, like, why me? I gave my life to you, I gave my heart to you, and you have all these questions, and you start to doubt who God is, and you start to doubt everything, and fear comes in, and, the anger and pain and hatred comes in, and then either you'll do two things. One is you'll cling to God, and, like my son who's clinging to his dad right now because he just wants to be with his dad, or you'll walk away. And then that's sad when people walk away, because it's like you were gonna miss how God was gonna turn those things around, how you were gonna move from glory to glory, how God was gonna pick up the pieces and make it more beautiful than you ever could have, right? So, in our story, it's like I've had times in my life where my heart's been broken, and I felt like my life was broken. And when you feel that way, you can pick up the broken pieces of your life. You can see, okay, I'm really broken right now, but I can see how these pieces are going to come together, and I could see hope, and I could see. I could kind of see it, and then, but this time when Dan was talking about, just the repetitive pain in our marriage and in our story, it was like I felt like my life was shattered to dust, like my heart was to dust, and dust, you can't pick up dust, so it's like in that moment, I remember like just like this in this place of. There is no hope. Like there is, I couldn't see it. And then, but you know what the beautiful thing about dust is? Who is the potter? What does he do? We are clay in his hands, and he can take dust and mold it into something so beautiful, so much better that you would have thought. In that time that Dan was talking about, it was like a 1-year period. So altogether, like our story is like, we're talking about our testimony. So you're hearing the hardest, the roughest, the darkest parts of our marriage. Obviously, we've had good seasons, and stuff. But this last time, it was like this 1 year of just like despair and devastation, and of like not knowing how this can turn better, And I remember just thinking, like what he's doing, my son, like I just need to be with my dad, like my father. I can't, like, I'm hearing voices. There were so many people that's here in this room that were there for me, that came, like we have family here and friends who, like Rachel took, I think, a week off and just came and sat with me in my devastation, cried with me. Justina, you came, and Kristen, you took a week off work too. In hindsight, I see how God was there every moment. Like he never left me or forsake me. I had to take showers during my time just to cry, but he never left me. And I had this year of just like friends coming, people coming, sitting with me and crying, and also hopeless with me. Like, I don't know why this is happening to you, and I just want to cry with you. And then I had moments with God where, like I said, I turned towards him and I clung to him, and I just knew that if you don't help me breathe, I'll die right now. And I would have these moments where I would spend time with him, and you could just feel his presence just like so thick, right? Because he says he's close to the brokenhearted. And I remember thinking, I remember praying one time, I said, if my brokenness causes you to be this close to me, let me stay in this brokenness forever. Because the presence of God is like none other. Like you don't want to move away from that. That's what we were created for. So he showed up in such tangible ways. He provided for us. And even us being in Oroville, California right now, it was him who led us there miraculously, visa stuff miraculously. The church that we're in right now, we're staff at, they have a recovery program, so they knew exactly what they were dealing with him. but they took me and my kids. And, God just used this community to just bring healing and truth and identity to us, and God redeems. Do you know that God redeems? And when he redeems, it's like he doesn't just, sometimes we think that when he redeems and restores, that he restores and redeems back to what was good, right? Or what our idea of what was good. But when he redeems, it's like he redeems you back to like what you were created for, who you were created to be. It's like better than what you thought, right? So it's this constant, like, heal my wrong thinking, God. Because when Jesus showed up, in that time when he rode on a donkey, it's like people thought they knew him. And then even today, it's like we think we know him, but he is better than you think, and he can do something with your life more than you can imagine. Nothing is too big for him. Okay, forgiveness. So we know that if you don't forgive, you won't. Pain and unforgiveness leads to calluses being built in your heart and your life, doesn't it? Like, you don't want to stay in that place. Like, it's like you're locking yourself in a jail and you're turning the key and throwing it, and you're like, I'm happy in this prison. I'm happy here. Like, I don't need to get out. It really locks you up, because forgiveness it sets you free. And for our story, it turned into reconciliation. It's the beautiful, it's such a beautiful story of what God can do in our marriage. And I look at Dan, and it's like, I think it's a miracle that I see him for who he is today. And that's not saying anything good about me. It's saying what God can do. You know what I mean? And how he can change a heart. And so our story ended in reconciliation. Not every story does, but the point is, you need to be able to follow God in what he tells you to do. Like, you need to be able to know that he is the way. The one thing that, okay, this is a bit. So, in any season of your life, so for me, this is what I had to do, not knowingly really, but because I walked through it, I'm like, okay, this is my daily walk with you. This is what I'm going to do. But no matter what season of life you're in, no matter what you're going through, this is the secret, really. This is the treasure. And it's in Matthew 16, 24 to 25. And Jesus turns to his disciples. You know that we're all disciples. It's like some of us, we think that I'm not going to be all in with God because I've got my life and God is a part of my life. Like, I believe in Jesus and he's going to be. Do you know there's no such thing? That is the silliest thing I've ever heard. The whole, from Genesis to Revelation, the story of God creating man is to be in relationship with God. Like, that's what we were created for, to walk in the cool of day with him, to know him intimately, to be one with him leading and us following, him as the king and us following. There's no such thing as I'm going to have my life over here in the garden and God over there. That was never the plan. And then when man sinned and there was that separation between God and man, God sent his only son to die on the cross for us, to reconcile us back to him, to set us back into the original plan, which is one with God. So if you're in your life, if you're not one with him, where it's just a Sunday thing or a thing, that's the silliest thing. Like, when we do the ministry time altar call in just a minute, it's like, respond so that you can be all, like, it's all or nothing. In Revelation it talks about, don't be lukewarm, like he'll spew you out. Like, there's no such thing. And so it's like, then Jesus told his disciples, that's us, okay? If anyone would come after me, I know he was talking about his 12 disciples, but for today, this is us, okay? If anyone would come after me, number one, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. So if anyone would come after me, number one, deny yourself. You know, it's like, especially when we're going through pain and trauma, that's the time that we do not want to deny ourselves, because we want to rush into control. Like I wanted to rush into control and pick up the pieces of my life and somehow put it back together. But because it was in pieces and it was dust, I just couldn't. So then I left it, and I was like, okay, I'm denying everything I know. This is devastating, but what do? I'm denying what I know. I'm going to let go of what I think, and then pick up your cross. You know, pick up the suffering, right? Like pick up whatever you think is, whatever the thing that causes you to feel like that gap time, right? From expectation to reality. Pick that up and follow him. And follow Jesus, because how he's going to lead you is going to be different than how he led me. How he's going to lead you is going to be different than another testimony that you hear. But unless we deny ourselves, pick up our cross and follow him, we won't know what that's going to look like, right? Okay, let's finish quickly. Or not. You can say, keep going. James says this: consider it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you encounter various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance, and let endurance have its perfect result, so that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. It's like when we go through things like trials and tribulations, when we go through that, it's like, we can rejoice in that. Like, I'm not lying when I tell you that in, some of the most broken times, like there was this deep, like, peace and joy that I felt, that I was like, if this is what it takes to be in this state of brokenness, let me be here. Because it's like, I didn't know what was going to come after it. But then, James talks about it, because it's only going to last a little while. Because he comes through, he doesn't leave you in your trials and tribulations. He promises that there will be. So when we find ourselves in a season in our life where we feel like, this is hard. It's like, don't be surprised. The Bible talks about it. Because in it, it's like the gold that's in you is refined. Okay, I'm going to read you that verse in case you don't believe me. 1 Peter 1:6-7, it says this: in this you greatly rejoice, even though now for a little while, if necessary, you have been distressed by various trials, so that the proof of your faith, being more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested by fire, may be found to result in praises and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So it's like when you're going through stuff, it's like, that's the time that it's like, almost you can think of it this way, like, I am going through something really hard right now. Wow, Jesus, I wonder what you're going to reveal to me. That's already in me, the gold that's already in me. It's like he refines it and he brings it out. Your faith, that's more precious than gold when it's tested in fire. And this is a time where people fall away usually, because they don't know. They don't know. They have this understanding of God that when you think that you will never go through anything hard. That if you walk with him, you think that it'll be roses and rainbows and, flowers all the time. And that's just not true. There is joy in the suffering. Why would you not want that? That's after the suffering is when you see his glory even more. And he doesn't cause the suffering. He doesn't allow it. He's not a bad father. But we live in a broken world where people have free will. But he's not, like, you need to know God in this too. Because he's not a passive God. He's not out of control. He knows what he's doing. He loves you. And he's already working things out better than it was ever going to be. Right? Romans, it says, and not only this, but we also rejoice in our tribulations, knowing that tribulation brings about perseverance, and perseverance, proven character, and proven character, hope. And hope does not disappoint, because the love of God has been poured out within our hearts through the Holy Spirit who was given to us. There are parts of you that you won't really understand, like hope. You won't understand joy. Like you won't understand the powerful, some elements of God unless you allow yourself to go through these moments. Like that you allow your God to go through these gap moments from expectation, reality, that you go through them. Because you won't experience God as a God who comforts the brokenhearted if you run away from him when you're brokenhearted, or you won't experience God as like the one who comes and is mighty to save if you run away from him when you need saving. You won't experience God as a redeemer, like he's the redeemer of our lives. Like how could you not experience if you run away when redemption is needed? Right? Where it's either what the Bible says, what we hear, what we know about God is true or it's not. So I remember even learning about addiction, and it's like, Dan was saying, like, I just thought, like, I'm just going to give in to my addiction and be an addict for the rest of my life. Like, either God can bring freedom to heroin addicts or not. The stats in the world says one thing, but it's either God, what you say is true or it's not. And, we're here today to tell you that it is true. He is Redeemer. He is Almighty. He is Savior. He is Healer. And only He can take the broken things and turn it around. Can we get the worship team or some sort of music? Yes, play something. You can play something, Elroy. Okay. So, I feel like God wants to... I felt like what He wanted to do today was to just awaken our hearts to Him, to who He is. And, what a beautiful God He is and what He can do. Like He's the God who does the impossible. And sometimes we need to go through these things that feel like this is impossible to come face to face with the God of the impossible. He's the God that can make things right. He's the God that leads. So why don't we just close our eyes for a moment and let's just wait on Him. I want to pray for you. I think what we'll do is we'll just, I think there's always, the response is always important. It's like that, it's like what I was saying, right? Like if we don't step out in faith, you'll never know what's on the other side. Like it takes us, like he moves with or without us. But when we move, like it moves Him. And it's like He gives us, like we were made in His image, He gives us this free will to choose Him. And so I just want to ask you guys to, it's like that, the response that I think what we're going to go after today is this, like if you want to do this, right? Okay, Jesus, what you said to your disciples at the time, I'm hearing it now and I'm going to do it, is deny myself. I'm going to take up my cross and I'm going to follow you. I'm going to lose my life because you say that if if I lose my life for you, then I'll find it. So, you know, a response doesn't need to be anything crazy, but why don't we stand, and why don't we just take a step forward or something if you want to respond to that. I want to, I give you, I'm going to be all in.